Almost every day, Ukrainian F-16 fighter pilots carry out several flights to destroy the enemy behind the line of combat contact, as well as on the territory of the Russian Federation and on the territory of Ukraine temporarily occupied by the Russians. F-16 pilots also fly to provide cover for other combat aircraft of their fellow fighters. One of the Ukrainian pilots said in an interview, "Almost every missile hits its target. More than 80% of the missiles we launch hit their target. They destroy both Shahed and sea, air and land-based cruise missiles," the Ukrainian combat pilot said. According to him, the targets of the strikes are known in advance and the intelligence works quite well. He explained that Ukrainian military intelligence adapts very quickly and receives up-to-date data. "Right now, we can only strike in tactical depth, but the effectiveness of these strikes is very high. If we want, our bomb will fly into someone's window," the Ukrainian pilot added. The pilot explained that F-16 pilots carry out multiple strike missions a day on Russia and occupied territories of Ukraine. They also conduct numerous sorties to provide protection to their teams operating MiG-29, Su-27, Su-24 and Su-25 aircraft. "We know our targets in advance. Our intelligence is working quite well, despite media claims that we do not receive intelligence data. One could say our intelligence forces adapt very quickly, and we receive up-to-date information," the Ukrainian pilot added. Ukraine received its first batch of F-16s from Denmark and the Netherlands in July 2024, and an undetermined number of Mirage 2000 5F fighters from France in February. The aircraft, the first batches of the 80 pledged by the NATO fighter coalition, represent a significant upgrade to Ukraine's aging MiG-29 and Su-27 Soviet-era fighters. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky added at a conference that Ukraine had recently received more F-16 fighter aircraft, but declined to elaborate on how many or which country sent them. The conference came shortly after Zelensky received a promise from US President Donald Trump that he would help Ukraine find more Patriot air defense batteries. Still, the pilot admitted in the interview, the F-16s cannot get close enough to destroy planes carrying Russian-guided aerial bombs. Ukraine had carried out cross-border attacks into the Belgorod border region next to Kursk. Moscow said that Ukraine had attempted to attack over the border in the western part of Belgorod, close to the villages of Demidovka and Prilesi. Kiev attacked with roughly 200 soldiers and 5 tanks, the Russian Defense Ministry said. Ukrainian mill bloggers identified 237th Tank Regiment, 3rd Motor Rifle Division and 177th Marine Infantry Brigade has the formations with troops deployed around Demidovka and Grafovka. The attack, led initially by light infantry units advancing on foot through woods and farm fields, has broken into the village of Demidovka, some 500 kilometers inside Russia, and it held it against quick response forces sent to that sector. The Belgorod attack, repeating armed Ukrainian violation of Russia's border, appears to be a much smaller operation, with Ukrainian forces having captured by Monday between 20 to 50 square kilometers of Russian real estate in the new incursion, battle reports said. Reports from both sides confirmed the Ukrainian success, but conflicted over its scale. Russian propagandists write that the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation transferred Akhmat, border guards and the 155th Brigade of Marines to Belgorod. Armed forces of Ukraine use long-range strikes to complicate the logistics of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Last week, 2 strikes were carried out on the command posts of the enemy, which destroyed the means of communication. Z channels claim that the attacks of FPV drones and HIMARS hinder the ability of the Russian armed forces to hold their positions in Belgorod. The pro-Moscow mill blogger Gennady Alekin wrote that the Ukrainian advance had turned the international frontier opposite Demidovka into a giant grey zone and that house-to-house fighting was in progress inside the village itself. Russian mill blogger Boris Rozin, in a Monday situation update, said the settlement of Demidovka is under Ukrainian control. Russian forces withdrew from the area, allowing the enemy to occupy it. Additionally, Ukrainians are clearing mines and removing dragon's teeth barriers on the border. Russian forces are now counter-attacking the settlement. Alekin claimed one of the attacking Ukrainian units was a light infantry formation called the Russian Volunteer Corps, a unit raised in Ukraine from Russian nationals opposing the Putin regime. Ukrainian mill bloggers have reported 225th Assault Infantry Regiment, a crack outfit armed with US-made Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and elements of the 414th Unmanned Aircraft Brigade, aka Pataki Madyara, one of Ukraine's best-known strike drone units, are in the Belgorod sector and backing up attacks there. In pursuit of a beautiful picture for propaganda, Russian commanders turned soldiers of the Russian army into living victims. The soldiers who participated in the so-called Operation Pipe and made their way to Sudza via a gas pipeline suffered severe lung damage. Doctors admit they have never seen such horror. Russian war correspondent Operator 13 published a video from the hospital which shows X-rays of the occupiers' lungs. The commentary on the video sounds almost like a death sentence. All the fighters who took part in Operation Potok have such lungs. The lungs are completely clogged. Doctors are fighting the consequences, but no one knows how this will affect the fighters in the future. The doctor in the footage only sighs heavily. Lord have mercy. In pursuit of the myth of heroic penetration, Russian military personnel climbed into an old gas pipeline through which gas had been pumped to Europe for years. However, Russian commanders did not even bother to think that the pipe had accumulated residues of technical oils, toxic resins, combustion products, rust, heavy hydrocarbons, and condensates. When inhaled, these substances destroy mucous membranes, cause severe chemical burns of the respiratory tract, and can provoke the development of chronic toxic pneumonia and even oncology. In addition, there was virtually no oxygen in the confined space of the pipe. The soldiers suffered from hypoxia and inhaled chemical vapors, which has already led to poisoning of varying degrees of severity for many of them. According to doctors, the soldiers' lungs are so damaged that they will most likely never recover. And all of this for the sake of a banal propaganda show and an attempt to pass off an insignificant episode as a heroic special operation. In reality, there was practically no military effect from this adventure, but dozens of soldiers are now doomed to lifelong illnesses and disabilities. As a result, Russian propaganda is inflating victorious reports, hiding the real consequences. And the military themselves turned out to be unnecessary expendable material. No one thought through their protection, did not assess the risks, and today they are lying in hospitals with hopelessly destroyed lungs, while on television they are being turned into a beautiful myth. As toxicologists explain, such pipes can accumulate not only residual oil and resins, but also sulfur compounds, nitrogen oxides, phenols, methane vapors, and other dangerous gases. When these substances enter the lungs, they cause chemical burns of tissue, fibrosis, damage to the bronchi and alveoli, which can later cause respiratory failure and death. While Russian television shows parades and heroes, the reality is this: the Kremlin's own army is expendable material for the sake of myths and beautiful headlines. And for each such myth, dozens of soldiers pay with their health and lives.